You're watching WAFF 48 News at 5 on your side.
Good Monday afternoon, everyone. I'm Liz Hurley. Welcome into this streaming version of our 5 p.m. newscast. It has been a brisk start to this work weekend. Boy, overnight temperatures are expected to drop even lower tonight. Let's send it on over to WAFF 48 Chief Meteorologist Brad Travis. Brad, you have a smorgasbord of weather events to talk about. Let's talk about tonight. Could temperatures really drop into the teens again?
Yeah, that's what we're forecasting. Probably close to 17, 18, 19. Want to leave the faucet dripping, or at least a stream running tonight. Open those cabinets, do what you can, and then it gets worse as we get later into the week. We'll be talking about that potential for a winter storm this weekend coming up in just a few minutes. But right now, let's focus on what we have at hand. We got a clear sky. Temperatures are chilly. It's going to be a cold night. Tomorrow morning around 7 a.m., temperatures will rebound back up into the low 30s. Actually, this is Wednesday. Tomorrow morning, we're going to start off around 18 degrees. Here's the rain that's coming out. There's a lot to keep track of here. It'll be a wet Wednesday, late morning into the afternoon hours. This is all going to just be a chilly rain. Once the rain starts, temperatures will drop into the low 40s and maybe even upper 30s as we approach the sunset. About a quarter of an inch of rain can be expected with this. The big system's coming in. Our next weather maker, our first alert weather day is Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We're going to talk about that on your 10-day forecast coming up in just a few minutes.
Thank you, Brad. Now to a developing story in Huntsville tonight. City leaders speaking out after a deadly shooting outside a local club. WAFF 48's Callie Neese joins us live outside Icon Ultra Lounge, where the shooting took place over the weekend. Callie, you talked to the city councilwoman who was over this district. What did she have to say?
Councilwoman Michelle Watkins told me she has been supporting an effort started by club owners to ban troublemakers from clubs in her district. They have deemed this club jail, and she told me she believes this is helping prevent incidents like this from happening inside the clubs. Early on Sunday morning, Huntsville police arrested John Linder after responding to Icon Ultra Lounge. Officers found 20-year-old Corian Ziegler, who was shot and killed, and another victim with non-life-threatening injuries who was transported to the emergency room by car. Huntsville police officials say they arrested 40-year-old John Linder in connection to this weekend's shooting. The Madison County District Attorney ruled Ziegler's shooting justified under Alabama law. However, Linder faces charges of first-degree assault and shooting into an occupied vehicle. He is now free on bond. Last year, Michelle Watkins supported a group of local club owners in their club jail program, where they make a list of people to ban who have caused issues in their clubs before. However, she believes there is more work to do to stop the violence outside of these clubs.
We have got to get to a place in Huntsville and throughout the United States where we are being safe with our guns, we're being conscious about our guns, and we need cooler heads to prevail.
At last check, there's no word on Linder's first hearing and when it will be set. Reporting live in Huntsville, Callie Neese, 48 News, on your side.
Thank you, Callie. The Morgan County coroner has released the name of the woman found injured and lying in a ditch on Apple Grove Road. The coroner says 38-year-old Ashley Critchley was apparently hit by a passing car and died from her injuries. State troopers are investigating, but we haven't heard back on a description of the vehicle that struck her. A 48 News update now in Florence, where a woman has been fighting to make a change to a Confederate monument located outside the Lauderdale County Courthouse. Tomorrow, the Florence City Council will consider adding a historical marker to provide context about the statue's origins during the Jim Crow era. WAFF 48's Aria Pons live in front of that statue. Aria, the location and the wording for that marker will be voted on at tomorrow's council meeting.
Yes, Liz, both have already been picked. The location will be somewhere right over here, possibly on this corner, which is city property, as opposed to where we are currently, which is Lauderdale County property. This is the courthouse, and the wording of the marker has also been chosen. It's meant to explain this statue right here behind me and the context behind it, and the context behind its dedication speech of when it was actually placed, which is highly offensive. Now, Camille Bennett with Project Say Something has been working 7 years or over 7 years to actually get the statue moved. However, under Alabama law, the statue is considered historic, so it cannot be moved without state approval. Bennett says the marker is needed to give the statue historical context then. The city has agreed to consider a plaque in front of the monument designed to give it more context. The plaque will acknowledge Confederate veterans and those lost in the fights. However, it will also state the history behind the dedication speech and how it coincides with Jim Crow laws and the, quote, spread of white supremacist policies. Bennett says she doesn't believe the marker will pass, though. Council President Katrina Simmons, who actually put it on the agenda to vote on, also says the historical significance needs to be shared in some way because the language of the dedication speech is terrible.
It's important. History is history, the good, bad, and the ugly. So I know it probably will be a controversial situation, but the truth must be told. And as far as the language, there's never a good way that you can share that language. I mean, it is what it is.
Camille Bennett also shared with me that if the marker doesn't pass in this city council meeting, they'll just be placing it on private property. So they'll be placing this marker no matter what, with or without the city's help. Reporting live in Florence, Aria Pons, 48 on your side.
Thank you, Aria. New reports suggest President Donald Trump is linking his push to acquire Greenland to a Nobel Peace Prize snub. The revelation comes in a text message to Norway's prime minister. Karen Kafer reports from Washington.
President Donald Trump tying his pursuit of Greenland to a snub by Norway's Nobel Prize Committee. In a text message to Norway's Prime Minister Sunday, Trump said, quote, considering your country decided not to give me the Nobel Peace Prize for having stopped 8 wars plus, I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace. Trump's escalating threats shaking NATO allies, including Denmark, of which Greenland is an autonomous part.
We're not willing to give up the sovereignty and hand over 57,000 Danish citizens to become Americans against their will.
Trump also threatened an additional 10% tariff on goods from several European countries that oppose his plan. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer on Monday called for tensions to cool.
The use of tariffs against allies is completely wrong. It is not the right way to resolve differences within an alliance.
Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, who has had positive relations with Trump, also called the tariff threat a mistake.
I wanted to say that the prediction of an increase in tariffs against those nations that choose to contribute to the security of Greenland is, in my opinion, a mistake.
The EU, in retaliation, considering a so-called trade bazooka that would cut off U.S. access to key European markets and other economic countermeasures. Trump has previously insisted a U.S. Greenland acquisition is key to national security and keeping Russian and Chinese ships out of the region. Greenland's premier said on social media Monday, quote, we don't let ourselves be pressured. We stand firm on dialogue, on respect, and on international law. In Washington, Karen Kafa, WAFF 48 News on your side.
A new bill moving through the Alabama State House could help men at high risk for prostate cancer get screening sooner by removing financial roadblocks. WAFF 48's Will Eldridge joins us now after talking to a survivor and with the sponsor of this bill. Will, the survivor tells you early detection vital for those at high risk.
Exactly, and he says Senate Bill 19 will get many men that key early detection. Sponsored by Senator Steve Livingston, the bill would expand insurance coverage for prostate cancer screenings across Alabama, covering 100% of screenings for men who are at higher risk. Livingston says there is a data that proves black men and men with a family history of prostate cancer are at a higher risk of developing it. He wants to make sure those who need to be screened the most can do so. SB 19 would require screenings at age 40 to be covered without deductibles or copays for black men and any men with a history of the disease in his family. I spoke to David McElhaney, a volunteer with Zero Prostate Cancer and prostate cancer minister, who says removing that cost barrier could lead to earlier diagnosis and better outcomes.
Caught early, prostate cancer is nearly 100% curable. But caught late, it drops down to about a 30% pass rate or success rate. So it's critical that we get men tested earlier.
If approved, the bill would take effect in October. Reporting live in Marshall County, Will Eldridge, 48 on your side.
Still ahead, scam shots. Fraudsters using tactics and fake medication to scam you out of your cash. how to keep your health care finances in check when we come back. Plus, community and commemoration, how North Alabama recognizing the legacy of a civil rights icon, coming up. A 48 safety alert for you now. The latest data from the CDC shows that while flu cases remain elevated across the country, the amount of activity has decreased, even stabilized for 2 consecutive weeks. Bad news is deaths linked to the flu, though, are trending upward. Reporter Mandy Gaither spoke to a pediatrician about why children are one of the groups at highest risk of catching the flu.
In the U.S., hospitalizations for flu in children younger than age 18 have the highest peak weekly rate in more than 15 years. And in the latest week of data, there were 15 flu-related pediatric deaths for a total of 32 reported child deaths associated with flu this season. The CDC says 90% of those who died were not fully vaccinated against flu.
Children, especially under the age of 2, they're pretty small. And when they're still small, you get something that's just so inflammatory, like influenza. When it gets into your lungs, it causes a lot of inflammation.
Dr. Frank Esper with Cleveland Clinic Children says the best protection against severe disease is for adults and children 6 months and older to get a flu shot.
By protecting yourself against influenza, you're also protecting everybody in your family.
Washing hands and highly touched surfaces can also help prevent the spread. For young children, especially at preschool, Esper recommends an adult using an alcohol-based rub to remove germs.
Alcohol is actually a better way to clean off their hands than to use soap and water.
If a child is sick, Esper says to keep them home, and you can also consider masking.
We masked up during the first rounds of COVID. We saw flu just drop because everybody was staying away from each other. Everybody was masking when they were out, and flu couldn't get through that.
For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
And now to a 48 scam alert. Thousands of you are using GLP-1 medications in order to lose weight. But fraudsters are now taking advantage of that medication to try to steal your personal information. Leaders with the Better Business Bureau of North Alabama say these scammers are advertising GLP-1 medication through online ads or even through text messages with a link. They want you to click on those links and put in your info to order the product so they can steal your information and your money. Karen Reeves with the BBB says most of the time people will not receive any product at all. Others say they receive fake medications in the form of a shot or a pill. Reeves says when it comes to medication, it's better not to take any chances.
Be leery of something you're not familiar with. The website should be secure. It should say HTTPS. There should be contact information there, their customer service support, just the basic website things. But always remember, this is a prescription medication, so you shouldn't be able to just go to a website and place an order. That would be a huge red flag right there.
And if you're in one of these situations, experts advise using a credit card so you can dispute the charge if something goes wrong.
Now, your first alert weather with Chief Meteorologist Brad Travis. 48's Umbrella a Week giveaway is sponsored by Mr. Rooter, your locally owned expert plumbers for over 34 years.
A very cold night coming tonight. You may want to leave the faucet dripping or running a steady stream. As we go through the overnight hours, we're going to get down into the teens tonight. So very cold tomorrow morning, and overall another cold day. 43 degrees right now in Decatur. Just a little bit of a breeze on the water. You can see that from our camera. Next 12 hours, we get below freezing in a hurry, probably around 6:30 or 7 o'clock, 25 at midnight, 19 at 6 a.m. Clear sky. You may be able to see the aurora borealis, the northern lights, right after sunset because the solar storm, it peaked earlier today. It's all going to depend on the solar wind and environment. But again, probably only going to be able to see it through your phone, just like the last few times. But hey, give it a shot. Daily planner for tomorrow, not much to it. A really cold start to the day, a little frost out there. We'll warm up into the low 40s. That's about it. As we fast forward to Wednesday, that's our next chance of rain, and it's going to be rain, a chilly rain moving into the shoals, perhaps as early as 10, 11 o'clock in the morning, and this will slowly track east. So very similar to what we had last week with those back-to-back cold rain showers. By 12:30, the temperatures dropped into the low 40s with the rain picking up. This will be about a quarter of an inch, maybe even a half inch in some areas as we go through the afternoon hours. You see by 4:45, the evening commute for the Huntsville metro area, Athens, Decatur, down to Coleman, over to Arab, and even Scottsboro, Albertville, it's going to be a little wet. Now here's our developing winter storm. I'm going to start you off here at 11:30 Friday night. This is the European model. It's been the rock star, the Cadillac, so to speak, of the models for about 2 years now, and it nailed last week's storm system that was calling for snow here early, the other models, and it just didn't happen, as we know. But one thing I will tell you, some of the models are bringing this in during the evening hours on Friday. But regardless, we're right on the edge here between this pink, which is freezing rain or sleet, and snow, and it's right on this boundary you typically get the heaviest snowfall totals. So it is very possible, if this is all snow, we're looking at about 10 inches of snow in some areas. However, it's likely going to be a combination of snow, sleet, and freezing rain with temperatures in the 20s. The wind gusts are not going to help. We're going to see wind gusts 25 to 35 miles per hour. So if we do start to see ice accumulating on power lines, if we get up to about a half inch of that, we're going to have a lot of power outages. So that's one thing we're trying to help you with your planning, trying to figure out where this is exactly all going to take place. And it's just too early in the game, so to speak, for us to know that. But we'll start to get a better idea probably as early as Wednesday as the high resolution models come in. But the models that we watch run every 6 hours, so we'll keep you up to date. First alert weather days Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And I will tell you, if we get significant snowfall, those temperatures could be closer to 0 degrees Monday morning.
In Florence, almost 100 people gathered at a special breakfast held every year. For the last 34 years, members of the Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity have hosted this breakfast to commemorate Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and his legacy. They celebrate his life, mourn his death, and as a community, advocate to spread peace and love by supporting nonviolent change. They even brought in a special speaker from Selma. Assistant Attorney General Billy Young touched on the vision that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. had for this country.
We have to know our own legacy, and the only way we can figure out our legacy is creating and finding our voice. And that's something that Dr. King placed emphasis on, making sure that young people, that all people had representation and that they used their voice to make this world a better place.
Young says that starts with you. Here in Huntsville, more than 1,000 people filled the VBC's Saturn Ballroom for the 41st annual Dr. Martin Luther King Unity Breakfast. Former Alabama Governor Don Siegelman was the keynote speaker, who shared stories of his own life, the justice system, and his time behind bars, and King's time in the Birmingham jail. Siegelman passionately talked about the challenges King faced in getting the Civil Rights Act and Voting Rights Act passed, and how current times are eerily reminiscent of past times, with confrontations between law enforcement and nonviolent protesters. Organizers say it's critical that everyone remember Dr. King's legacy and continue to advocate for positive change within our community.
In this particular moment in time, I think it is especially important with the political climate of the country at this point, and with some of the things that are going on in our nation. I think the message that Dr. King resonated, and again, the message and what he preached and advocated for, I think has been forgotten. And in many ways, we are challenged to remember that and to continue to proclaim it and to give it action. You know, to put action to his words.
All proceeds from today's event help the Delta Theta Lambda Education Foundation to help students in their academic careers. Meantime, the Limestone County community stood side by side, arm in arm, for a unity march to remember Dr. King. The west side of the Athens Limestone Courthouse was filled with people as they walked with their friends and neighbors for this very special event. Organizers say it was heartwarming to see a lot of people out there from all ages come together to remember Dr. King's legacy and his impact on the civil rights movement.
It means that our next generation are taking our democracy seriously. If we don't speak up as a community, we will lose all of the civil, social, and human liberties that we have.
Woodruff says it's key that the community understands these lessons to help preserve Dr. King's legacy. Now let's move on to sports. Let's head to a little talk on former Auburn Tiger and how he's coming back to Alabama, but not to play, instead to undergo surgery. Former Tiger QB Bo Nix scheduled to have surgery tomorrow in Birmingham. He suffered a fractured ankle during the Denver Broncos overtime playoff win against Buffalo. The former Pinson Valley High School star will be off the gridiron for the rest of the postseason. Jarrett Stidham, who was Auburn's starting quarterback when Bo Nix made his recruiting visit, will replace Nix as the starter for the Broncos. And another NFL coach looking for a job today. The Buffalo Bills fired head coach Sean McDermott following the team's playoff loss on Saturday. He's been with the team since 2017 and has been to the playoffs with the Bills 8 times. He joins the other 8 NFL coaches who have been fired this season. 48 sports anchor Kaylee Tingelstad will have much more on that coming up tonight at 6. Thanks so much for joining us today at 5. More news here as it breaks. We'll see you back here in 30. Have a good night.